Mikel Arteta had his courage of convictions last night. This surprised me somewhat.
Yeah.
So Stamford Bridge, Arsenal go there and Arsenal win. Wasn't much of a game, I've got to say. I was speaking to one of the lads this morning who was watching it last night. He's in here early this morning, but he had a snooze during the second half. So you don't associate that with a Chelsea-Arsenal match.
Nope.
But anyway, that was the case. It certainly wasn't a classic by any stretch of the imagination. But before match Mikel Arteta and after match Mikel Arteta were two totally different people, in my view. This was pre-match, Simon. This was Mikel when he was asked if he thought his players were giving him the maximum.
With the majority of them, yes.
Not all of them. I mean, presumably, no. How do you go around changing that?
Trying to again finding a different way to do it, find them, challenging them again, putting somebody next to them to try to push them again. Some of them can get to a certain level, and you cannot push any further. You want to evolve that, is not possible.
So are your players giving you the max, some of them, and then he goes on, some of them can't get to a certain level? In other words, yeah, some of them are giving me the max and some of them aren't. That's what I took out of it. Mm-hmm. Post-match last night, Arteta hit out as he believed that his pre-match comments had been misrepresented by some sections of the media.
Nothing is broken. Inside, nothing is broken. I don't know how hard they're going to try from the outside, but inside, no. And they will try to put things on me that I never said. You can see the spirit of the team from the first minutes. It doesn't matter, we're playing to be 7th, 8th, 9th. You can see that, and you can never doubt about their efforts and how much they try. I said that if I don't get 120% of each player, it's my fault and my responsibility. And it wasn't like this on the press, and I am so annoyed with that. My players, I will defend them in front of anybody for the rest of the time that I'm here, because they deserve that, because they earn it every single day. Everybody that is here, do that, because if he doesn't, or I'm not here, or the player is not here, because the only thing I'm going to demand until the last day is that they give me everything that they have. That's all. After the ability, we can play better, worse, win, lose, but that is unquestionable and non-negotiable 100%, because they're not going to break that. They can try, but they're not going to break. I know the chemistry that we have, not only with the players, but with our staff, with all the coaching staff, with the boards. And they're going to touch that. And if they try to touch it, it can be with opinions, but not saying that's something that I never said. That's not. I know I'm not taking that, and it's the first time that I have to make my point.
I like Mikel. I must admit, I liked him as a player, and I hope he does well as a manager. But am I missing something here?
Look, I would have liked to have heard a little bit more of the qualification behind what Mikel meant in the first interview. And obviously not having heard all the interview and just heard that snippet, the reasons that Mikel was saying that he's the majority. And I'd like to have heard the journo push back and say the reasons, because he may well have been talking about people aren't operating at their optimum level for a variety of different reasons. It might not be that they're committed to him, and he may have given journalists the opportunity to take it a certain way. But he certainly has opened the door. He opened the door. He was asked the question, and he gave probably a poor answer. And the answer was at the time, are you getting everything from your team? The majority of them, yes. Which I think most football managers would say, quite frankly, because you're always going to have an element of your dressing room that isn't exactly where you want it to be. That's just the nature of football.
I mean, he said some of them can't get to a certain level.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with that statement, because we're talking about ability. If we want to translate that into commitment, if we want to turn around and say these players aren't playing for him, and say that actually there's a problem in that dressing room that Mikel Arteta has just identified, which is that they aren't playing for him. But if he's talking about the innate ability, that's a different discussion, because if you've only got you can only get players to the level that they're capable of getting to. I know you've got coaches like Pep Guardiola that improve players, but that's because they have the capability to be improved. If we're suggesting via the conversation that Arteta is saying they're not playing for me, then he's opened the door for what perhaps has come after it. But if he actually meant that I've got players that possibly aren't going to be able to get to the level that I require of them, then that's a different conversation. And it was up to him. It was up to him.
That's what he meant.
But then there's nothing wrong with that.
But he left it open to interpretation.
He did,
to be quite honest.
So he has to take the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. He has to accept the fact, and he has to push back and say, okay, I don't like what the media have done there, because they're misrepresenting slightly what I meant. But I allowed that misrepresentation, and let me qualify what I meant.
Yeah.
Right? It was never about commitment. It was never about application. It was never about the determination to succeed in this club. It may well just be that I've got certain players that are round pegs and square holes.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But even if he said that, there'd still be a spin-off, which is, who are they? And what do they look like? And why did you buy them? And haven't you done anything to improve them? So there was no point in the conversation. He's opened the door. He has to accept the fact that he's opened the door for the media. He's a very experienced manager now. He's been doing this job at Arsenal for 18 months. He's worked under Pep Guardiola. The problem for Mikel Arteta is it's very nice in the world of theory. He's not in the world of theory anymore. He's in a world of reality, and he's not able to hide behind the first team manager and look good and have all the training mechanisms and have all the coaching badges and have all the dialogue. He's in the real world now.
Yeah.
And this is the business end, and he's coming up short.
I've got to say as well, Simon, please, on this occasion, you can't be annoyed with the media because you said it.
No, it's your own fault.
It's your own fault.
It's your own fault.
I mean, and we've just shown that by playing the before and the
only
after.
thing I would say in defence of it is I don't like the gotcha mentality. A gotcha mentality is something we seem to revel in this country. Gotcha! He said they're not playing for him. Got him, right? Bang, we can lord that up. He opened that door, but there is something unedifying about why does it have to be a gotcha mentality? Because if there was a real desire to understand what he meant, the journo could have pushed back and gone, well, what do you mean? What are the reasons behind it? You've just said the majority of the players are with you. What do you mean? And if he'd have gone on to say there's a few that are on the periphery of the team that won't build to the level, then the journalists couldn't have been laying a pipeline of he's talking about unrest in the dressing room. He's talking about players that are not playing for him. So there is an element of the journo was happy with the answer. He was happy that Arteta's given him an answer like that.
Next time, Mikel will be less vague. Or say what you mean and mean what you say.
Or maybe...
Then we know. Then there's no gotcha.
Or the alternative, Jimbo, is he'll be even more obtuse and not even answer the question, not give you answers because he'll think that the motivation behind the question isn't genuine. Because I think you would as well. You'd have gone, boom, hang on a second. What do you mean by the majority of players? Yeah. What are you referring to? But the journo over there, I think, was, hang on a second, I've got gold here. He's just told me something that I can utilise. And then Arteta's gone away, won a game, and then come back and thought, I'm really quite cross with that because I've allowed myself to get a little bit of a kicking. I've allowed the journalist to take it in the direction that I've opened the door for him. And now I'm going to be a bit more robust about it.
Is it deflection?
From what? They just won a game.
Tiny little bit of paranoia?
Well,
I know they won the game.
Paranoia.
And that surprised me, Simon, that off the back of getting three vitally important points, he goes on the attack a bit in the media. I'm really annoyed with them, the way they reported my earlier comments. Don't be.
You wonder
because you left it open to interpretation.
You wonder what would have happened. Yeah, that's true. Very true. I wonder what would have happened if they'd have lost the game. So did he get a pair because they won a game?
Yeah.
And he didn't have a pair before the game, and he was basically suggesting that it was other people's responsibility or other people's fault as to the reasons why they currently weren't doing what Arsenal Football Club are supposed to be doing or what we think they're supposed to be doing. The fact of the matter is that despite the advancing of the thought that Mikel Arteta was going to be a good manager by people like me, I'm beginning to think that's unwinding. But I also think the reasons for that is Arsenal are a joke football club right now in lots of ways. They've got an owner that's disengaged. They've got an owner that's happy with mediocrity. They've got a director of football that, I don't think is pulling up any trees. And they've gone for a manager that sounds good on paper, but when it comes down to it, I'm not sure he's got the chops to be able to do what Arsenal need for him to do.
Joke? Is that a bit strong? Joke football club?
Well, you've got to turn around and say that Arsenal have just laughingly been put inside a self-appointed organisation of the top 6 clubs, whilst their team, I said 2 years ago on Adrian Durham's fanfare of intellectual commentary show, that Arsenal would ultimately drop out of the European spots if they didn't change the direction of travel. They're now done that.
Yeah.
They've worked their way backwards in the league, and what they are is a big club in image alone and a big club in reputation alone, because they're not a big club in any other department right now.
Yeah,
and that's not because I have an agenda against Arsenal. It's just the simple facts of the matter. What are you, 10th, 9th, 8th in the league? Right? What are you, out of the Europa League, losing to a manager that you thought was a joke, couldn't get him out the door fast enough because you ridiculed him? What are you? Are you a winning football club? Are you a club in ascendancy? You've got a group of fans that operate a TV station that do nothing but vilify their own club. I'm sorry. I think they're a bit of a joke at the moment.
All right. Simon's putting it out there. Arsenal at the moment, to him, bit of a joke club at the moment. Is that too strong? Are you really a club on the up? Are you on the ascendancy? If you're not, you should be, because it's about time. And what do you think of Mikel Arteta before and after? Has he got a point, or has he been a bit flaky with that one? Is he leaving it open to interpretation?